Hello. Mhm.
Where am I?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the December 2nd, 2021 City Council meeting to order. And tonight I'd like to ask Deputy Mayor Matt Mahoney to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United
of the
States
United
of
States of
America
America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And please let the record show that all council members are present. Council, with your indulgence, there is something that needs to be addressed. And so I'm going to pull the presiding officer's report up to this point. With recent events of violent crime up on Pack Highway, I think we need to address this right up at the front of our meeting. These events are not indicative of Des Moines. In fact, some of them are not even within our jurisdiction. But any action that puts our community, its residents, or our businesses in danger is our business and is our concern. We have partnered with surrounding jurisdictions, and we are working to put a plan in place. And to give us further details on that, I'm going to, at this point, turn the microphone over to our city manager, Michael Mathias.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I want to just frame what's going on a little bit from a larger perspective, and then I'm going to ask the chief to update you with kind of our local response. But what's going on and makes things very difficult is that in the past several years, there have been a number of well-known, well-observed incidents that kind of reinforce the impression that there is systemic racism in law enforcement. And the response to that has been both to efforts in different cities at different times to defund the police, and then at the same time at the legislative level to enact laws to protect against that happening. And those laws also, in the manner in which they're prescribed, have impacted the capacity of prosecutors to prosecute crimes. I'm not making a judgment or suggesting one thing or another in that regard, and none of this is an excuse. It's simply an explanation that the rules of the road have dramatically changed. And you'll see tonight in our discussion about our legislative agenda that we would like to help the pendulum swing back more to the middle, because to the degree that we need to keep our community safe, we need our police able to do that. So I just wanted to frame it from a slightly larger view, and I'm going to ask Chief Thomas to talk with the community about our specific plans. Chief?
Thank you and good evening. So I'd like to give a brief overview of the plan that we have come up with. This plan is a work in progress. It's ongoing, and it's changing based upon what additional information that we get. But we have come up with a 5-prong approach to address the issues along Pacific Highway South. The first one involves behavioral health workers. We are in the process. In fact, next week, the city of Des Moines and Des Moines Police Department are conducting interviews to hire 2 additional behavioral health workers to work with those with mental health and addiction issues along this area of Pacific Highway South. Our initial concentrated area is between South 224th Street and 240th Street on Pacific Highway South. That's our initial main focus area. The second prong is code enforcement. I'm working with Corey Batterman. We need to work with those businesses and property owners specifically in this area and quite honestly, broadened area along Pacific Highway South to do some work and make some improvements on some of the businesses, buildings, and derelict property. The next prong is high visibility traffic emphasis and other high visibility patrols. What we need to do up there is not necessarily write a bunch of tickets, but we need to have a presence, and we need to have a presence that is seen by the people causing the problems, and probably most importantly by our community members and businesses to help bring a sense of safety and security to Pacific Highway South. The next prong is gang, gun, and drug investigations. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but we're going to have the assistance of our partners in the federal law enforcement community. And finally, the fifth prong is the community's role in helping deal with these issues. And probably most importantly on that is our communications plan in speaking and reaching out to the businesses, the block watches, and other community groups in the affected area, so we can effectively communicate what we're doing and what the community can also do as we partner to address these issues. I can tell you I've been a police officer for 33 years. The whole time I've worked in this same general area. It's been an issue with challenges that the entire time that I have worked here. It didn't get this way overnight. I can tell you right now, it's worse than I've ever seen it. And we're going to fix it. We're going to address it, but it's not a situation that's going to be solved overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take problem-oriented policing approaches. And it's going to take at least these 5 prongs and probably other strategies to make a real impact. So yesterday we held our first regional meeting. All of the Valley police departments were there, the Valley police chiefs and representation from their departments, as well as the Washington State Patrol, Metro, and Sound Transit. And all of the agencies involved are on board and willing to participate in making a significant difference. I'll also note for the first time that I have ever seen this, I had initially invited the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the special agent in charge of ATF reached out to his partners. And at that meeting, we had the special agent in charge of the FBI, of the DEA, ATF, and Homeland Security. We're all present at that meeting and are going to be active participants in our plan to address the most specifically the guns, gangs, and drugs aspect of this plan. Generally speaking, and I'm not going to get too in depth on what the specific tactics are, but I can tell you there's 2 main themes. One theme is uniformed operations, and there's an assistant chief from the city of Kent that's going to be in charge of coordinating the uniformed operations. And Des Moines Assistant Chief Mark Cooey is going to be in charge of the actionable intelligence and significant investigations coordination for those operations. I am told that Metro already has a work order in to remove the glass windows and some of the benches at the bus stop. There will still be a shelter there, but the shelter for the purpose of allowing people for its intended use, which is riding the bus, and not for sleeping or engaging in illegal activity or other conduct that's not productive to that area. So there was a question about police reforms and the legislative actions that were taken and how that will impact this. And I can tell you it will impact operations, and we absolutely will not use that as an excuse. We will change our tactics, we'll change our procedures, and we will work within the new laws that were enacted. And I understand as part of our legislative work that Anthony, I've spoken a lot with Anthony Hemstad, our program coordinator that works down in the legislature. I know they don't like it when we use lobbyists, but he's our lobbyist that goes down there, and he's we are completely on board with what WASPIC and other police organizations. WASPIC is the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, that are working with the legislature to work on some of the reform issues. And so we're on board with that, but I want to be crystal clear. We're not using that as an excuse. We need to change the way we do business. We will change the way we do business, and we will make an impact, and we will be successful. So I am open to any questions you may have.
Okay, I see a hand from Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Chief. I guess my big question is, do you feel somewhat blindsided by this recent uptick in violence? Because it is pretty intense, right? I mean, was there an expectation with the pandemic and so on that, you know, did you see some of this coming, or did your profession see this coming?
Well, I think we've been speaking for a long time about the increase in violent crime. Last year with the pandemic was one of the worst years with increased violence, and specifically violence committed with guns. And now this year, we've significantly surpassed last year. So were we blindsided by the violence? No. But could we predict that there would be 4 or 5 people shot in a 3 or 4 day period on Pack Highway? No, we couldn't have predicted that either. But yes, we're aware of the violence. There's a huge increase in violence. And
I mean that in terms of a trend, because, you know, we have to keep the pipeline for you know, for officers and so on. You can't turn the ship as far as, you know, staffing levels. And so that's kind of where I'm going with that is the other thing, or second thing, you know, with code enforcement, is there some kind of model for cooperation with the city of Kent? Since, you know, we share that strip you understand what I'm getting at here?
Yes, and I left that out inadvertently. The city of Kent has committed to me, the chief has committed to me and stated at the meeting yesterday that the city of Kent code enforcement would be actively participating along with our code enforcement up along Pacific Highway South.
And are our laws, regulations kind of in sync with one another? I mean, are they compatible? Are, you know, basically the goals?
I believe so, yes. Without going into a lot of specifics, I believe they are, yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next hand I saw was Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and then I see a hand from Councilmember Buxton. So after Deputy Mayor Mahoney, I'll go to Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, Chief, I just want to say thank you to you and your staff for aggressively pursuing this. I know it's a tough time and you've got a lot of work ahead. My question to you, as just getting out of the public safety and emergency management meeting, where we got a little bit of this information there, is the community members that are watching tonight, what would you advise them to do that they can help reduce crime and contribute to the overall goals we've set for ourselves?
Boy, that's a broad question, Deputy Mayor. The same things that people always do to keep themselves safe. But as we know, and it's been brought to our attention, Pacific Highway South right now is very much a hotspot for criminal activity. So If you're out, be with somebody else. Have lighting at your business or your house. If I think I read one of the many emails where somebody talked about walking out into their yard and approaching somebody who was suspicious or didn't belong in their yard. I certainly would encourage you to call the police and let us respond. That's our job to do that. That's a very dangerous thing to do, but we certainly are here to serve our community, and that's certainly what we'll do.
Okay, Councilmember Buxton.
I am, along with the rest of us and the deputy mayor, thank you so much, Chief, for your action. You know, I was looking through the emails trying to respond to everybody at the same time you were, and I saw an email from you to a resident, to a citizen, with a timestamp of 12:07 a.m. So, you know, hats off to you and everybody else who scrambled and maybe didn't get a wink of sleep on some of these nights. So thank you so much. One, just to segue off of the deputy mayor's question, what you just shared, could you clarify a little bit about Block Watch, or mention Block Watch and the advantage of having a Block Watch organization in your little micro neighborhood, and how somebody would go about doing something like that?
Yeah, so I've spoken a little bit, I believe it was at this meeting. Tanya Seabury is our community service officer who's in charge of community outreach, and she does run our Block Watch program. And what that does is allow our communities and smaller neighborhoods within the communities to get together, share information, share crime information, and especially in light of this plan that we're talking about this evening, for us to communicate more effectively with more members of our community rather than just broad general statements. We can answer specific questions and engage better and more specifically to the specific concerns of the specific neighborhoods.
Councilmember Harris, your second time.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Chief, but just, you mentioned, you know, having a heavier police presence along Pacific Highway during the public safety meeting. And I think that, you know, will make a lot of the residents and business owners happy. Is that something that we should be thinking about on an ongoing basis? You know, in other words, is that an intervention that basically we should just plan for on a structural basis?
I think it's important, and so the short answer is yes. And to quite honestly, that's why I included so many partners and we tried to outreach to so many people. My biggest fear right now, and I can tell you, there were several police departments at this meeting that sent emails. There were some that sent emails thanking us for having the meeting and then letting us know that because they didn't have the resources, although it was nice, they couldn't help or were not able to help. And I can tell you, what I worry about is there's going to be a significant incident, let's say in our own downtown, or another issue that's going to, we're trying to set up a plan with sustainability, because if we get pulled away to a significant incident, if the city of Kent, which I believe they said at the meeting, they've had 18 homicides so far this year, if they get pulled off to a different location, we need to have, we need to be able to continue this. I think this is a 1 to 2 year project at least for us to make a real difference. And to sustain that, we need to keep our eye on this as a significant project. And I think it certainly warrants it.
Indeed. I talk to people, if you've lived here a long time, you see this kind of thing flare up every 4 or 5 years. And then basically you guys do a great job and then people move on to other things. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then I saw Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Chief, to you and your staff for such a great job. My question for you tonight is, will you be coming to us in the future, near future, asking for more officers? Would throwing more officers at this and approving more officers, would that help you out at all with this project?
Well, I tell you, if there's a police chief that ever tells you that they don't need more officers, they're not being entirely truthful to you. Especially in the state of Washington, we have the fewest officers per 1,000 than any state in the United States of America. So yes, I am working closely with our city manager, and we interviewed 2 potential officers today. We don't have an opening yet, but we are going to have a retirement next month. And I'll tell you, we won't see that officer on the street until at the earliest, probably October. It's nearly a year. October is very generous, very ambitious on our part. So unless it's a lateral officer, and when you have some jurisdictions offering a $25,000 hiring bonus and 400 hours of leave time just to entice people in the door, it is tough to compete with that a little bit, but we're not using that as an excuse. I want to be responsible and working with our city manager to do the best that we can in light of the entire city's budget. It shouldn't be all about the police department. We have many aspects of the city, but we're going to use all of our partners and all of our resources and everything we can do to keep our community safe.
Thanks, Chief. And you know this council's behind you. So if there's the need and it comes across, and you, Michael, come to that, then we'll be here for you.
Thank you for that. And I do. You guys have always been incredibly supportive, as has the city manager.
I just have one quick question, Chief. We authorized hiring ahead of 2 additional officers. Have you had the opportunity to fill that yet, or is that part of the capacity that you are looking to fill?
They are filled.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
But I might need more.
Well,
because it takes so much time, but we're working on it.
we understand, and we'll look forward to hearing what your needs are and helping where we can. Okay, Council, I'd also like to move the Human Services Advisory Committee up because they are attending this meeting with us. We have some incoming members and some outgoing members. If Nicole Nordholm, are you available? See the name, but I'm not sure if she's available at this point. Well, the first thing I'll say is we have 3 members that are going out. We have John Scully, Lauren Frederick, and I believe it's pronounced Sheila Grace Matsui. Is that correct? Okay. These individuals have done an outstanding job. Our Human Services Committee always does wonderful work. And then I believe we have some incoming members. Some may already be seated at this time with Karina Anderson, Ketchmark, Diane Hoyer, and Mary Giberson. Nicole, there you are. Would you like to say something about the folks on the Human Services Committee?
Sure, yeah. So the 3 you mentioned that are outgoing, which is Sheila, Lauren, and John, have been with us since 2018. And Rochelle Sems, who's on the call as well, our management analyst, has done a fantastic job of kind of taking over and guiding them. And they've been a part of just, utilizing our funding and picking the agencies that we work with. They're all 3 very involved in our local community. And then just this last June, we were lucky enough to get 3 new members that you mentioned, Corinne, Diane, and Mary, who will kind of carry on our good work of the committee. And we're eager and hopeful that in this coming year, we'll be able to meet in person and continue on a lot of the great human services work. So thank you to the 3 outgoing, and we're excited for the new guard.
Yes, I definitely want to thank everybody for their service to the city. We are a better place because of the efforts that you put forward. So thank you very much. Okay, that moves us to correspondence. And my understanding is we do have some correspondence. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to our city clerk. Your clerk.
Okay, thank you. So we have 2 correspondents. One is Stefan Diados, sorry if I butchered it, Delrose Community Letter, Sheila Goodfellow, a letter to consider reopening critical services for the seniors at the Des Moines Activity Center. And the following have written in for public comment. For our Marina Development, we have Christina, Debbie Walls, Al Walls, Joe Lazar, Ian Metzger, and then crime and shooting on Pacific Highway. We have Claudia and Gilbert Green, Daryl Brown, Stefan Diados, Ben Floyd, Barbie Morgan, Jennifer Tester, Lyle Lanninger, Doreen Harper, Christy Kima, Anne Fahey, Alan Hansen, Henry Stahl, Debbie Walls, Robert Wetzelson, Rupa Gura, Jennifer Santos, Beverly Walker, and Dan Harrington. Anne Brown wrote in about air quality. Christine Putzas, sorry if I butchered it, the vision and food for thought. Tad Dobiak wrote about 2 things. Anthony Martinelli must resign immediately, and council priorities should include air quality monitoring. And then Tony Mills wrote in about the police department. And we had 2 people that were signed up to speak, but only one is on the meeting right now, and that's Christine.
Okay, is your mic on?
Sorry.
Okay, so that takes us to the comments from the public portion. So it looks like we only have one person signed up to speak. I just want to remind them that personal impertinence, slanderous remarks, or become boisterous or threatening would remove you from the meeting. And you will have 3 minutes to speak. And it looks like Christine, I believe it's Puzas. Is that correct?
Christine Puzas, yes.
Okay, Christine, you've got the floor.
Hello again, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Happy to see you all well. So I wanted to say something about the police. You guys have been doing great. I know that things happen as they happen, and you've been doing the best that you can. I was wondering, have you and Kent thought about putting a joint facility, maybe even with King County, up on Pack Highway? That would be visible and would help detour. The other things that I have is with the marina and the vision for the city. I already gave you guys the email. I hope you guys went and looked at it. Both of which, the facility up on Pack Highway and the stuff you want to take care of down here, some of that could be funded by the law that was just passed and the bill that's on the table. So that's food for thought. Also, since you guys probably don't remember this, or we have people who are new to the area, in '87, I actually held a man that was hit by a car on Pack Highway and 252nd, and he died. I held him as he died. And this was an old man trying to cross. And the thing that got me is I found out at that time by the EMTs that he was the 5th person who died there. And that actually was the reason why there is now a stoplight that cost $100,000 at 252nd. This can be taken care of. All of these can be taken care of. We just need to be active and say something, do something, help all of us. Anyway, with that, I'll let you guys go. Thank you for doing such a good job. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, it now takes us forward to the city manager's report. And City Manager Michael Mathias, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things this is along the lines of the tragic side of these events on Pack Highway. But I want to tell you that earlier this week, Dan Brewer and myself had a Zoom conference call with Selena and Betty, who are the mother and grandmother of Ezra, who was an innocent victim shot in the La Familia shootings. And we spent about 40 minutes on the phone and talked with them. And, you know, I wish the world was populated by people like them. Incredible heart, incredible souls. And we were talking with them specifically, opening a conversation that'll take place over time. Is there some way that the city can engage in helping develop some memorializing of Ezra? And that could take many forms. It could be a scholarship, it could be a actual physical memorial. And they were going to, you know, kind of put their heads together, and Dan and I will continue that discussion with them. And then when we get to some ideas, we'll bring them back to council and share them. But I thought that was, you know, it puts a really human face on all of the things we're talking about tonight. Also, I'd like to ask Dan Brewer, if you just fill us in a little. We've gotten a number of emails and concerns from Delrose Manor, which is off 24th there off Kent Des Moines Road. And Dan, you are aware of some of the things we're doing and some of the issues.
Yeah, we have gotten a number of emails related to diverting traffic when something happens on the highway, Pack Highway, and that facility is closed down. This neighborhood gets impacted by detouring and diverted traffic. So our traffic engineers have been reviewing that situation this week, and Andrew Murgis, myself, the police chief, and Michael will get together early next week and review some options and hope to have some signing in place that might alleviate some of that in the near future. So we're working on that. And while I have the mic here, I wanted to also let the council and the community know that if you've been up kind of observing the work on the Sound Transit project, you're seeing a lot of the girder work going up for the guideway surrounding, you know, primarily in Kent and up in SeaTac. But 2 weeks from tonight, starting on December 16th, Kent Des Moines Road will be closed from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Starting on the 16th, because they're going to be installing the girders over Kent Des Moines Road for the guideway. So that work will start on the 16th. Then they'll have it opened through the weekend, and then the week of December 20th, or the nights of the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, Kent Des Moines Road will be closed again from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. as they do that construction work over the road. So I want to start getting the word out. Sound Transit and the contractor will also be notifying community members. You'll start to see some variable message signs going up. But Tommy, Owen, and Andrew, and Brandon, and myself, we've been working on this with Sound Transit and WashDOT, City of Kent, Puget Sound Energy. There's a lot of coordination that's gone into this particular closure because it's very complicated. So anyway, just want to start getting the word out about that closure coming up.
Great, thank you, Dan. And that's Kent Des Moines Road east of Pack Highway.
Yeah, between Highway 99 and Military Road.
Great, thank you. A couple of other items. Tonight on the consent agenda are 2 items related to city consultants. And I just want to mention There's one for Mr. Hemstad, who will later in the meeting be discussing the 2022 legislative agenda and getting input from council and trying to solidify what that looks like. His item is to extend his contract through 2024. And the rationale for that is that this is a biennium, second year of a biennium. And so far, Anthony, I think, has helped us acquire over $5 million from the legislature. And so we'd like to keep him on board through the next biennium, 23 and 24. And, you know, Anthony, we expect those same results. But just to let council know, all we're doing is extending the term. This is not a financial approval by the council. Money's already set aside for this. And we also have Mr. Peter Phillips, who's been on retainer, helping us look at the possibility of a passenger ferry service. I talk with Peter at least once a week by phone. He keeps us in the game relative to Puget Sound as a whole and potential passenger ferry service. And we're extending Peter's contract through next year. And the thing about it is that the proof is in the pudding on that one, because Peter was, in all respects, almost single-handedly responsible for the maiden voyage of our passenger ferry service to Seattle that took place in September. So just to fill in council a little bit of background there before you consider that on consent. And the last issue I have to share with you is that, you know, we respect our electeds' opinions, perspectives, views on things. And that's entirely your prerogative and your role as electeds representing the community. What we do object to is untruth. And that, unfortunately, is something that occurred with one of the posts from Councilmember Harris. And he, Tara, do you want to put that picture up, please? So Mr. Harris suggested that the marina needs to look something like this. I'm not sure if that's Renaissance Center in Detroit or wherever it is, but I want to tell you that we have worked so hard over the past few years to assure our residents that we will not have height block their views, right? That we will protect the shoreline. And we are governed by shoreline management constraints on what our development will look like. And I just wanted to say, Mr. Harris, that we are not interested in raising the property values on Maury Island so people can look back at our marina where the property values have dropped because the people can't see the ocean or see the sound. Not going to happen. And the same thing is that in terms of height and also water quality. So this is not a truthful representation of the potential of the Des Moines Marina. No one I've ever talked to in all the public meetings we've had up to this point has ever advocated for this. And it's not a reasonable or a legal possibility for us to pursue. So I'm not sure what your intention was, but that is something I just want to correct the record. For the community, that's not going to happen. Thank you, Mayor. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you.
I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you, City Manager.
That takes us forward to the consent calendar. So at this point, will the clerk please read the consent calendar?
Item 1, Hemstad Consulting Contract Amendment Number 2. Item 2, Peter Phillips Consulting Contract Amendment Number 2. Item 3, 2022 to 2027 Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Master Plan Update. Item number 4, Agreement with South County Area Transportation Board for continued city participation. And that concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
I see a hand from Councilmember Nutting.
I move to approve the consent calendar as read.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Nutting, second by Councilmember Bangs. Is there anyone who wishes to remove anything? Okay, we have Councilmember Harris. The
Thank you,
item
Mayor. I'm sorry.
you wish to remove?
Yes, items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. So at this point, all those in favor of the consent agenda item 4, please raise your hand until I call your name. Okay. Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Okay, so item number 4 has passed. Okay, we will start with item number 1, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I have great respect for some of Mr. Hemstad's work, but the rationale used for renewing his contract just did not seem adequate to me. I would prefer that our lobbyists not represent us at start or engage with us on marina redevelopment in any respect with the RFQ. That is not his portfolio. Thank you. Yeah, let's vote.
Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
I just would like to say that I've really appreciated Anthony's work and what he's brought to the table. Doing things and getting things done in government in combination with public work or private public works or whatever it's relationships. And Mr. Hemstad is one of the best and most adept at that and is very well connected throughout the community. Using him in various assets to what we're trying to achieve is actually the smart move, because he knows our city, he understands what we're after, and he can represent us. And also we can use his relationships and the strengths he has there to accomplish the mission. He's worth every penny and more. Thank you.
Councilmember Bangs.
I'd simply like to add the fact that if anyone's more qualified than Anthony, I'd like to know who on this council. Because as far as I'm concerned, the city manager and Anthony Hemstad have done a tremendous job in getting many things done and money towards what it is we're trying to accomplish in this city. I'm not sure what Mr. Harris means by portfolio, but I think Mr. Hemstad is extremely qualified and positioned to represent us. Thank you.
Councilmember Buxton, then Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, this is the same amount that we agreed to last year when we extended his contract to a full year. So this is just a re-upping of the same agreement that we already approved, and then locking it in for 3 years. It's just a wise move. It protects us against inflation and whatever else. And I appreciate Anthony's work also, to echo my colleagues. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Nutting.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I appreciate you, Anthony, and the money you've been able to retain for us and the work you've done to help us legislatively. So with that, I move to approve Amendment 2 to the contract between the City and Hemstad Consulting for the purpose of extending and updating the legislative advocacy contract through December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Point of order, Mayor. I have something to say. Mr. Hemstad's contract is to be our lobbyist and to basically reassign him to do other tasks.
Mr. Harris, this is not a point of order.
No,
Mr. Harris, that is not a valid point of order.
We moved,
had
he
discussion.
moved to the vote before
No, we
closing the
didn't move-
discussion.
We
So I'm
moved
done.
to the motion. You are out of order, sir. Now we have a motion and we have a second, and since you've now spoken twice on the event, I am moving to the vote. Councilmember Martinelli, you have something to say?
I do, Mayor. I just want to state that I agree with Councilmember Harris that Mr. Hemstad should not be representing us in the STAR committee nor in regards to marina redevelopment. I will be voting in favor of the contract extension because I do believe that he's done a good job as a lobbyist. But I do agree with Councilmember Harris's point. And I think the constant teaming up against and trying to public shame Councilmember Harris is embarrassing for the city. And I hope it stops.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand until I call your name. Okay, I have Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Councilmember Bangs, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Okay, item number 1 passes. I'm sorry, all those opposed? Okay, item number 1 passes 6-1. Okay. This takes us forward to item number 2, Peter Phillips Consulting. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I requested basically some sort of detail on the services that Mr. Phillips provided, and I have received none. It seems to me an odd thing to pay somebody $3,000 a month for ferry consulting. And it is typical, at least in my world, with my accountant, my lawyer, to provide timesheets. I have no idea what his work entails, and I sure would have liked to understand that value proposition. I'm done.
Is there anyone else? Councilmember Martinelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Harris, and I think that the terms of this are a little too vague, and I'm not comfortable supporting it, so I will be voting in opposition.
Okay, is there anyone else? Okay, so we have a motion to approve Amendment 2 to the contract between the city and Peter Phillips, extending the consultant services contract through December 31st of 2022. I'm making the motion. Do I have a second? I see a second from Deputy Mayor Mahoney. We've already entertained conversation. Is there anyone who would like to make a final remark? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Opposed? Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Martinelli. This passes 5-2. We are now on item number 3, the 2022-2027 Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Master Plan update. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you. We received the data sets demography after the meeting, and I think the public should have had an opportunity to take a look at that stuff and then provide comment and feedback before we voted on it. So I would like to see this put, could we move this to the next meeting consent agenda?
We have a motion to move item 3 to the next consent agenda.
Second.
And a second by Councilmember Martinelli. I see a hand from Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. Can anybody offer the pros and cons of passing tonight or moving it forward?
Well,
Before I recognize anybody, that was a question I believe went to the staff. Do we have a response? City Manager Mathias?
Yeah, Susan, do you want to address that, or Nicole? I mean, a lot of time and effort has gone into this. There's been a lot of input from the community, but if you'd like to add.
I can add to that. We've had the whole plan available, the link to the website. So it's been out there. We did receive a few comments on the full plan. So as you also know, we've had a very extensive public involvement process in this plan. We also have our consultants here tonight. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and leave it on tonight's agenda. That would be the most effective with our time. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is once every 6 years, and I would be the first to admit that sometimes getting public input on things is a bit like pulling teeth. But in their defense, the public has had just a tremendous number of competing things to think about in recent weeks, months, school board redistricting, and so on, the election. So, another week, the demography was not available to people until quite recently. And I have looked at the comments, and they come from basically the usual suspects. Since this is once every 6 years, we should just basically, work, just do whatever it takes, even if it's fruitless. Just give it another week. That's it.
Okay, seeing no other comments at this point, what we have is a motion to move this to another week's agenda. I would say all those in favor of postponing this to the next meeting, please raise your hand, and until I call your name. I see Councilmember Martinelli and Councilmember Harris. All those opposed, please raise your hand. See Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Motion fails 2-5. So at this point, we have a motion, and that's to adopt draft resolution 21-053, approving the City of Des Moines 2022 to 2027 Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Plan. I will make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
See, I made the motion. I have a second by Councilmember Bangs. Okay, any final discussion? Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been watching this throughout its progression. I've heard them come many times to the City Council and speak on certain information and aspects of this report. I thought it was very complete, minus a few spelling errors and corrections and grammatical things that changed. But I've also been to the public forums where the public was engaged on many occasions as well. Of course, I filled out the survey, as many others did, and so forth. So this is a continual effort to get here. A week doesn't make a difference. This is something that should be approved. And I appreciated the demographic information, but it was already kind of out there as well. I know you saw it in the census and so forth. So I just want to thank the team that put this together. I think you did an excellent job. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Passes 7-0. Okay, this takes us to the discussion of our 2022 City Council legislative agenda priorities. And we have a staff presentation by our city manager, Mr. Michael Mathias. I give you the floor at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. So Anthony's going to walk through a PowerPoint, both highlighting, what happened in the first year of the biennium, which was the 2021 session, and talking about for the future. And I think one thing that Anthony has brought to us, and I think council has, benefited and supported through your actions, is to focus on a number of very specific things. And even though some of those were large things, bulkhead renovation and funds for that and all of it. I think that approach of being very specific about what we're trying to accomplish has served the city very, very well. So with that, that's kind of the dynamic of what Anthony will show you, and give you a little background on what's going on in Olympia at this time. So Anthony, with that.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, City Council members, for also approving my contract. Very much looking forward to working forward to continuing to work with all of you in the coming years, and doing my best to look out for the best interests of the city of Des Moines. And as I've told Michael in the past, if there's ever anything, any area where I can add value, I'm looking out for the city. And I call Michael on a variety of things, and that's one reason he's tapped me to help with economic development as well. And that I'm very versed in the development and investment world as well. And I think we've been able to help Des Moines there. So with that, we'll move on to this PowerPoint. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. We'll just quickly walk through what happened last year, look at how the 22 legislative session is shaping up, and then move on specifically to what, as the city of Des Moines, will be trying to achieve. Okay, for this year, 2021, we basically came in with 5 areas that we were focusing on. First off, we're trying to get funding for the bulkhead, both appropriating money that we hadn't been able to spend fast enough, plus additional money for phase 2. We succeeded on both of those points, getting $4 million for the bulkhead. And as you can see, when you're down at the waterfront, that's being worked on right now. The second major priority was the Redondo fishing pier. And we were able to get almost $1 million for reconstruction. That's on top of the 350 that we got last session, or the previous session, for planning. Of course, now the problem with that, with Redondo, is getting the permits to be able to move forward as quickly as we'd like. Then on a regional basis, this isn't money that comes to Des Moines, but it does come to the region, help as a pilot program for healthy schools in airport communities. So that will be helping funds that will help people in the community. On policy areas, we were looking at a variety of different policy bills, but tax increment financing is one that needed push, and we did spend time and effort there. That finally passed. Washington State became the 49th state to actually have a tax increment financing program that could prove very, very helpful in future development in Des Moines for infrastructure and other issues. And then lastly, we were going after money for Barnes Creek Trail, the south segment, of $3.5 million. That we got it into the new project package for a new transportation bill. That bill didn't pass, though. A variety of things happened, and lots of negotiations and discussions, and it collapsed at the last minute. Transportation is going to be a huge issue in the upcoming session. So we didn't succeed on that one. We'll call it incomplete. We're going to continue working on it in this upcoming session. Okay, looking at the upcoming session, it is coming up soon, just over a month. Convenes on the 10th of January, and it's a short session this year, second year of biennium. It'll go for 60 days. 60 days of regular session. It could go special sessions, but often in election years, people don't want to go further than they need to. So You never know, but there's a good chance it will only go 60 days this year. Same split in Republicans and Democrats this year as last year. It's a strong Democratic majorities in both the House and the Senate. As mentioned, it is an election year, and that changes a variety of deliberations and tactics by both parties as we're going in here. As you know, all of the House, every single member will be up for election here in 2022, and approximately half of the Senate members. Really unusual year. We have a wild card in that normally everyone would know what districts they're going to be running in or the shape of those. We don't know that yet. And the redistricting commission, for the first time ever, wasn't able to complete their task, and so that's been kicked to the Supreme Court to determine what the district boundaries are going to look like. So we should know by April 30th. And then, while this is the second year of a biennial budget, and that usually means much less budget activity, this is going to be an unusual year in that we have an incredibly robust budget outlook from the Economic and Revenue Forecast Council. If you add up the additional money expected for this biennium plus the forecast for next biennium, compared to what they were looking at back in March, there's an extra $7.7 billion outlook that wasn't budgeted for just in March. So that's almost unprecedented. Now, but of course, we have the Omicron wildcard that perhaps this very robust outlook may not be as robust. So again, we remain in really unusual circumstances of normally these economic forecasts just barely change from forecast to forecast. Okay, maybe a couple percent one way or another, but not these wild careening that has been taking place in recent years. But with what has been very good forecast, plus all the federal dollars coming in, there will be more budget action this year than there normally would be in the second year of a biennium. Likely where the most budget discussion is going to be taking place is with the transportation package. That's partly because of the money that will be coming to the state because of the infrastructure package that was passed on a federal level. Also, just the pent up need for new projects and a transportation package, because it's been too many years since we've had a new project list. Also, as Chief Thomas mentioned, and the city manager, Matthias, public safety is again going to be a very big issue, as it was last session. This time, it will be more clarifying legislation, though, on what was passed last time. So some perfecting and looking at definitions of that legislation. Okay, moving on to what we are looking for as the city of Des Moines. First off, two financial issues. First one in the transportation budget, trying to finish that incomplete with the Barnes Creek Trail South segment. Again, looking for that 3.5 million. And in order to do that, we'll be pushing the overall transportation package too, because if that package doesn't move, our project doesn't move. So we do want to see success in transportation. The wild card there, as all of you know, is that the former chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee, Senator Steve Hobbs, is now Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. And Hobbs had been a really masterful chairman in many ways of the Transportation Committee. He was right in the middle of all these negotiations of trying to work out the differences between the House and the Senate version. All that has changed in a week. And there are a couple different people are jockeying for position on who will become the next chairman. if you asked me before Kim Wyman was appointed to this position in with the Biden administration, I would have said almost surely we're going to have a transportation package this year. Now, okay, there's enough push behind it and there's enough need for it. I think it probably will happen, but the chances of it have dropped just because of this change in leadership and likely change in philosophies. But stay tuned. This will be a very interesting area and evolving area in the days and weeks ahead. The second actual ask for cash that we'll be doing is in the capital budget, and that will be on 223rd Street for that Urban Creek Sunlighting project. And that's really for planning dollars, scoping, and completing 223rd is going to be very critical to the overall success for waterfront development. So two strategic programs we're asking for this year. Then beyond cash on some or appropriations on some policy issues, a couple of public safety issues that are impacting the city of Des Moines directly. And so in talking with the chief and the city manager and members of the public safety committee and hearing about how much this is impacting the city of Des Moines, we've already gone out and kind of been leaders in catalyzing and trying to move forward legislation. And on a catalytic converter theft bill, we've been working closely with Representative Jesse Johnson. We brought the idea forward to him. Surprisingly, there'd been nothing on catalytic converters in legislation in recent years. It's a huge problem in the city, as you know. In talking with the chief, he said 2020 there were 12, only 12 thefts of catalytic converters. Well, I can't say only. 12 is still a lot. This year through October, there were 82. So I mean, that's a stunning increase. And these it can total a car as far as the value of a car because it is so expensive to replace these things. So we're working with Jesse Johnson. Likely Claire Wilson will do a companion bill in the Senate. So that's moving forward. Also on street racing, again talking with the Public Safety Committee, the chief and the city manager understand that down at Redondo, big problem of street racing, and one solution would be cameras on the street to be able to see what's going on there. Problem is with current legislation, we can't do that. So we've again been talking with Representative Johnson, also partnering with the city of Tacoma. They have a similar problem. So looking at being able to have expanded use of traffic cameras in high problem areas. And we're going to try to do that on a statewide basis. But if that doesn't work, because there will be some pushback on a bill like this, we may try to do pilot programs that would include Tacoma and Des Moines and maybe a couple other cities. But again, this is specifically for the problems we've been having in the city in recent months. And then continuing on with the community and regional push for improving air quality in airport communities, working closely with our fellow communities in the area. And of course, as always, lots of different issues come up during the course of the legislature. And I'll be working closely with City Manager Mathias as things come up where perhaps Des Moines is going to have to weigh in and give our perspective. And again, I'm going to deeply miss Mayor Pina and working with him and being able to call him at the last minute to testify. And but Matt, if you want to come back as a citizen, we'd love that. But look forward to working with the next mayor and of course all the existing councilors. Here is the document that you have in your packet that we would be asking for approval on. I should note that there's just a couple words that have been changed in talking with or in discussions with City Manager Matthias on the air quality area. City Manager Matthias made the logical suggestion of before we had indoor air quality, and just we should remove the word indoor because we're really looking at air quality. If it's indoor, outdoor, we deeply care about both. Air is air. So that and we as this has been written earlier on things as they're developing. There's also a sentence in there that Representative Orwell is working on an initiative on that. It didn't need to be in that statement didn't need to be in the priorities. But beyond that, that's what we're proposing. And hopefully we had to go back a couple of years to have a nice signing picture because of COVID. There were no actual signing ceremonies with people. This past year, and we'll see what happens with Omicron and the like, if we'll be able to get together and celebrate the success that we can have by working together. And again, legislation is not a one-man business. You have to build coalitions and wide coalitions, and And while there's been talk about the success that Des Moines has had in recent years, that's really because of the fantastic legislators we have in the 33rd and 30th. It's a great team. To a person, they've been wonderful to work with and very cooperative along with their staffs and many of the community groups. But again, looking forward to hopefully being able to continue getting successes for the city of Des Moines this year and beyond. And that's it.
All right, thank you. City Manager Matthias, did you have anything you wanted to add as a concluding remark to that? Or
yeah, well, no, I mean, the only thing I'll say is one of the best things about having Anthony involved is there's never anything more to say. So with that, I think that's a great summary, and we certainly welcome council's input to help us define what it is we need to accomplish.
Okay, well, I've got a hand up from Councilmember Nutting and then one from Councilmember Buxton. And then I am seeing Councilmember Harris. And then I am seeing Deputy Mayor Mahoney. And so we will start with that. Councilmember Nutting.
Thank you, Anthony, for your presentation and what you're going after. I appreciate the air quality addition there. So with that, I move to approve the 2022 City Council legislative priorities as presented with the verbiage changes to the air quality and whatever else is in that document.
Do I have a second? I'll second it. Okay, so that takes us to discussion. And I go to Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had a couple of recommendations, just considering the public safety issues, since it was first and foremost moved to the front of our agenda this evening. And in regard to all our cities in King County. I just had a talk in regard to our South Caucasus Cities, Sound Cities Association, and that is the chief concern of all our cities. And so I'm just for the sake of first impact that I would like to recommend that we put the public safety segment, the 3 paragraphs at the top of our legislative priorities. And then also under public safety, there are 2, it looks like 2 subcategories, but there are actually 3 subcategories. So I'm wondering if we could clarify that with a bold title such as public safety reform, or because there's a one sentence that says work closely with the police chief on ongoing public safety reforms. Wondering if that could actually be put first under public safety, for the same reason that I'm recommending that public safety be put first in our priorities. So here's my recommendation, to be concise, that we put public safety as a whole first, and that we put the sentence at the bottom, work closely with the police chief, as the number 1 subcategory under public safety, and give it its own subtitle, just like the other 2 paragraphs. And then one more recommendation under environmental and airport mitigation. I'm going to recommend that we put the word agencies in the first paragraph here. It says, supporting, where it said the second sentence, air quality associated with airport related activities. Oh, it says that we will continue working with airport communities, citizens, and legislators. I would like to insert the word agencies. So we will continue working with other airport communities, citizens, agencies, and legislators. It's not that big of a deal. Might just be minutia, but there will be agencies that
I understand what you're saying. And
thank you.
Now, first of all, I want to ask Mr. Hemstad a question. And the reason that I'm taking this approach is that what you put forward, we can go ahead and make a motion, go through all the discussion on. I, being the seconder of the motion, don't have any real problem with what you're suggesting. So if the maker of the motion is acceptable, which is Councilmember Nutting, then that would be a friendly amendment and it would just move forward, and we wouldn't have a new motion on the table. The presentation, I don't know if it matters. So I'd like, could Anthony Hemstad tell me, do you see any harm in readjusting the document that way?
No, it's all reasonable. I normally lead with funding asks because that's so direct and it's so Des Moines. But I understand also of the importance with public safety. And the reason that the bigger reforms was third is that's general. The first couple were something that we're looking specifically at a Des Moines issue, but certainly all of it makes sense, and I'm comfortable with Councilor Buxton's suggestions. They improve the document.
Councilmember Nutting, do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I accept that as a friendly amendment. I also, can I comment really quick, Mayor?
Yes, you can.
I want to point out that without a motion on the table, that amendments like this cannot be added to it, and it would be just discussion, and we'd have to bring it back. So with the motion that I made, it allows this to move forward. So Councilmember Buxton, I appreciate your friendly amendment to the motion. So yes, I will move forward with that.
And Councilmember Nutting, I want to thank you because that is the true description of a point of order. So we have accepted Councilmember Buxton's amendments where we'll move the public safety to the top and take the public safety reform bullet, move it up within public safety, highlighting public safety reforms and working with the chief. So we have that in play. That is what the motion looks like at this point.
And then one more item, Mayor. If there are a couple of grammatical fixes, can I just email those later instead of talk about them? Like,
Yes,
there are
those
things
are-
like commas and maybe a word that should not be plural or something like that. I don't think that's,
Those are called Scrivener errors, and they can be corrected after tonight.
thank you. I will forward that to the city clerk.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hemstad. I was pleased to hear Councilmember Buxton's adding the word agencies. Coincidentally, perhaps, I got a phone call from Representative Orwell before the meeting, and in her proposal, there's going to be outdoor air quality monitoring and apparently, some form of legislative directive to try to get this to become annualized, but according to her, that's not going to happen until the fall. But I just wanted to mention it as being on the radar because it is part of the proposal she's put forward. And I sent the rest of the council details. I can email you as well. But the goal has always been to get the equivalent of noise monitors, how we have 24 around the area, is to get that kind of ongoing air quality monitoring. Just one other quick thing. I keep hearing about these pilot programs at the state level on noise cameras. And like Kent got some state funding a couple of years ago, and then it didn't go anywhere. Is anybody doing anything like that now? Do you know what I'm talking about with the noise cameras? They're like red light cameras, except that they detect loud, modified mufflers and that sort of thing.
Mayor, all I'd heard about that at one point was that the technology was not effective. And I don't know if there have been improvements in that regard or not.
Yeah, I just wondered if any other city or any other state agency was working on that. But, if not, that's fine. Just curious about the current state.
Chief Thomas, do you have any insight on that?
I just, the last information that I had on that when I spoke with Kent and other chiefs is that technology has not been developed yet. It's one person went down that road. It was extremely expensive and they wanted the city to float the study and make it work. So it's just not there yet.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Next is Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no problem with the changes. Agree with the friendly amendments. The only thing I have, and I'll just call it out for a little bit of a discussion, is work closely with police chief on ongoing public safety reforms. I mean, we were just talking before, and I've been through a few meetings, and of course, the sensitivity of the state legislation that's kind of maybe swung the pendulum a little too far and maybe missed the mark on what its intended purposes were. My call out is, we're kind of implying that here, but should there be a sentence that says something directly? I don't have the word verbiage necessarily for it, but I believe we need our legislators to understand that we need them to look at that legislation and help our officers be able to do their jobs better. And I know there's an intent to, or I hear so, but in this document, there should be some kind of language is all I'm kind of asking that I think should be added.
Mayor, if I may, and keep Anthony out of harm's way here, and the chief. So that's extremely valid points, Deputy Mayor. I would encourage for multiple reasons that be communicated in private. directly to legislators versus articulated on this document. That's just my own recommendation. I don't know, Anthony, if you agree with that.
Yeah, in that the nature of those reforms is going to it's going to be negotiated and it's going to be morphing over the coming weeks. It has in recent weeks. There have been a variety of groups that are involved with this. WASPIC has been a real leader. AWC has been engaging or at least monitoring on these as well. And I would flag that Representative Johnson has been great to work with on the catalytic converter and traffic camera legislation. I mean, he's going to be a leader on both of those, but very reasonable legislator as well. And I think we'll be able to work with him on because he has been such a leader on the overall police reforms, and he's in the middle of those discussions. Of course, if you want to change wording, as a council, you can make that decision. I think we had left it vague on purpose, but if you want to give more direction as a council, you are of course able to do so.
Mayor, I'll let you put your 2 cents in on this, but if that's what I just wanted to call that out. If the consensus of the council is not to change it, I'm fine with that, and taking the recommendations that were just given to us. I just needed to make sure we wanted to make that, were we making it clear what we were doing? So I'll leave it at that.
No, Deputy Mayor, I think I understand your intention, and I think what City Manager Matthias and Mr. Hemstad have articulated is that these are going to be challenging discussions. If we put bullet points on this, it's kind of like playing your hand open, and we want to have I think the flexibility for the chief to provide the input and the complications, and also because we are working with WASPIC and other organizations to be able to determine collective points of agreement and start to work on those together. So I understand the wording as it stands. I had a similar thought to you in the beginning, but I think I'm comfortable leaving it where it stands.
Yeah, the explanations, I really appreciate it. I think that cleared up the issue for me. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully agree with what you just said. That being said, at the end of the day, perhaps after this legislative session, I think it would be not a bad idea for the council to say directly, look, we support these aspects of police reform. The public wanted some changes made. Adjustments are going to be considered, fine, but at a certain point, you got to be able to say, look, this is the direction that public safety is moving, and say it in a full-throated fashion. Otherwise, there will always be just this idea of like, wow, man, all those laws, they just really ruin things and so on. I mean, I'm fine for now, but at some point by next year, the approach to law enforcement is changing, and at some point, that has to be explained as a positive thing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we have a motion to pass the modified City Council legislative priorities for 2022. All those in favor, please raise your hand until I call your name. I see Councilmember Banks, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember Martinelli, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Nutting, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, and myself. Passes 7-0. Okay. All right, that completes us at this point. I want to make sure I'm in the right place. At this point, are there any items for future consideration? Seeing none, this will take us to board and committee reports and council member comments. And every council member has 4 minutes. We will start with council member Martinelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to state that I appreciate the chief stating that we are not going to use the state law as an excuse. I think the state law could use some tinkering, but overall it made some positive steps forward, and it is the law of the land, and we must move forward with that in mind. I think the plan that's been put forward to address the crime is a good one. I really hope that it's not a temporary thing and that we really make it a long-term fix. I appreciate the chief being open to the fact that we do need more officers. It's something Councilmember Harris and I have pushed for years now and have been told all along that we are fully staffed. We don't need more officers. Clearly, that's not true. We have a city of 32,000 people and have 4 or 5 officers on duty at any time. We clearly need more to address the issues. And I hope that we can find a way going forward to add some more patrols. I think that if there's any police department in the region that deserves more officers, it's ours. They've been fully open to various reforms, body cameras, the 8 Can't Wait campaign, mental health officers. They're deserving of more officers, and our city clearly needs it. I also want to state that the amount of time from the dais, the amount of council time that our city manager and mayor have spent attempting to shame Councilmember Harris is really mind-blowing, and it's embarrassing. And it's really also ironic because so often the mayor and the city manager will point out something that Councilmember Harris has said, call it a lie with no context, and completely spread misinformation, the same thing that they are accusing him of. It is continuously embarrassing, and it's been going on now for 2 years. And I'm frankly just shocked that it continues to go on. And I hope that, the mayor and the city manager can grow up and can stop these type of attacks. And that's all the comments I have for tonight.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. One learns not to take the bait in this job, but just FYI, on my blog, I posted a picture of the beautiful point of view of the city of Detroit, considered somewhat of a joke, but all great cities have a beautiful skyline. And if you are going to attract people to come to this city, especially wealthy boaters, it might not be a bad idea to have a pretty stunning skyline. And that's what that post says. Anyway, I attended a couple of events regarding Native American Heritage Day, the 26th. And I had no idea about the various across the board disparities in the Native American community. It's just stunning. And counterintuitively, King County is like the worst in the state in many areas, educational outcomes, home ownership, just economics. It's just considering the great wealth that we have here. So I came away, better educated. Today was the first day of Adam Smith, our representative in Congress, is very good about holding federal grant workshops, and that's going to be continuing this week. These people think of, the grant system as something far away that does not apply to them, and that is not the case. I hope, you will go to his webpage, my webpage, and get links to it. And if you've got a particular business idea that you have, you should really start looking at that. It's not rocket science at all. Okay, some quick comments. I hope next year we can develop some better system for presenting letters from the public at the opening of meetings. It is unsatisfying to simply have your name and like a 1-word, 2-word summary. I fully understand that, like, reading the full text as they do it, some governments is over the top, but people do take the time to write detailed comments, and they care, and there should be some mechanism to acknowledge that more fully. Regarding the public safety thing, I got involved in local politics many years ago with code enforcement. And I used to think, man, we need more code enforcement. And I have been thrilled that the city has taken that to heart. But my views have somewhat changed. We will have a record revenue of code enforcement this year. And that's not necessarily a good thing. And I'm saying that in terms of Kent, Des Moines Road, and Pack Highway. At some point, you have to find a way to make that area healthy. You can't simply have a heavy police presence forever. Good neighborhoods do not require constant, heavy law enforcement. That's just not how it works. Healthy neighborhoods require very modest code
Mr. Harris, you're at
enforcement.
the end of your time. Please wrap up.
One last thing. Yeah, I want, along that line, I want to congratulate Andrew Murgis on his recent promotion. And I do so because he has been extremely responsive to community asks on that very thing over the past year. That really makes me happy. Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Bangs.
Thank you, Mayor. Very short. Had one committee meeting, public safety and emergency management, and I don't have to go back over what the chief provided today. I will say and emphasize, though, that crime is ongoing, and we know that. Our problem-oriented policing will also be ongoing, and I think as time goes on, it'll be tweaked and made better. And I believe that this joint group that we're working with and the chief will be working with will hopefully sustain itself by making sure that there's funding available and that they really do the show up versus just, in a year or so go away. I don't believe that'll happen unless the crime actually moves away. As far as the actual community being involved, Pacific Highway South is an extremely strange community. And we all know that. We've got apartment buildings, we've got housing, and we've got hospitals, and we've got clinics, and it's just a really strange mix of what goes on up there. And I'm hoping that eventually our community service officer will be able to pull all that together and provide the communities with options to report. And maybe as time goes on and the need is there, which we all agree, we'll have more police officers, not just in Des Moines, but across the board. So that concludes my report. I do have a comment, though. The comment that Mr. Martinelli made about picking on Mr. Harris, I find it a bit unsettling, because if we were truly responsible adults and responsible citizens of this city, I believe we certainly would, if we had a blog. I don't have a blog, don't want a blog. It gets you into a big rabbit hole. Perhaps we could be more conscious and more responsible with what we put out there on a quote unquote blog, and be more responsible city council members, because from the time that we started with the new council members, it's been pretty contentious, and that's unfortunate. It's left a bad taste in many of our mouths. I'm hoping with future council members that it can be better. I truly do. As it stands now, like I said before, I have my own issues with what's going on, what's been said, what's not been said, as far as where we are with a certain council member and then where we are with the blog of another. So I just have to make that comment because it's incumbent upon each and every one of us to do what we're supposed to do. It's our responsibility. And I take full responsibility for what I have to do. So hopefully going forward, everyone will do the same thing. The new ones coming on and the newest ones that we have. That concludes my report and comment.
Thank you. That takes us to Councilmember Netting.
Thank you, Mayor. Municipal facilities met tonight, and we got an update on the marina and the dock replacement. They'll be coming to us as a full council. They're hoping for the 16th, but probably early January with a full report to council with the dock replacements. And then we also were updated on the CIP, and quite a few of the projects have been completed. A handful will start here in the next week. Some even starting on Monday and still completed on by the end of the year. So that's great. We have full funding for a few things that are starting, waiting for a grant on another, but just kind of a high level overview. And then I wanted to remind everybody about the tree lighting tomorrow night down at Big Catch Plaza at 6 o'clock, and put on by Destination Des Moines. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Councilmember Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor. This month, every year, a committee is formed through Sound Cities Association. Sound Cities Association is an organization that our city belongs to, and every city in the county belongs to this organization except the city of Seattle. Its goal is to create one large voice so that all of our small cities don't get rolled over by the big two, King County and the city of Seattle. So that's the function of Sound Cities. One of the things that they're able to do is place somewhere upwards of about 75 electeds from all over cities all over King County into boards and committees that create a voice in all sorts of areas in our county, from transportation to water quality, growth management, law, justice, domestic violence. There's committees and boards all over the county that serve under Puget Sound Regional Council, and also boards and committees that serve under the King County Council. So Sound Cities, like I said, is able to place several electeds from all over the county into these, and 3 of our council members were placed on committees the last couple weeks. So I wanted to mention that our deputy mayor, Matt Mahoney, it was placed on the Joint Recommendations Committee. Councilmember Harris was placed on the King County Flood Control District Advisory Committee. And then I am going to be serving on the Growth Management Policy Board of Puget Sound Regional Council, as well as on the Regional Law, Safety and Justice Committee under King County. So I'm looking forward to, for our city to be able to have a voice at these tables and create some influence and represent our interests there. So looking forward to that. I feel honored to be able to participate that way. I also serve on the executive board of South King Housing and Homelessness Partners, and at our most recent meeting, we received a presentation on just cause eviction. There's some legislation coming up in regard to that. So we were a little more well-informed, though. However, there's still a lot of unanswered questions in regard to just cause eviction. And then we as well on the board for SCIP, that's the acronym for this organization, are forming legislative priorities to advocate for housing and homelessness issues. And just as a report, we're having a little difficulty coming into agreement on a few landlord tenant issues. And I just want to say, I personally advocate in our city that SCIP as an organization presents only issues and policy that have already been prioritized by a majority of our member cities. And SCIP is a partnership of 9 South County cities, and then has one member who represents King County that comes to the table there. So I just want to let you know, I'm really committed to not taking eccentric issues or side issues and making them priorities, but to really pay attention to our partnership and make sure that I represent the majority well there. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Mahoney.
Thank you, Mayor. Both Councilmember Nutting already mentioned the tree lighting down at the Big Catch Plaza. I'm told Santa may be there, so or will be there. So kids, look forward to that. In addition, the next night on Saturday, the Lynn Scotts, the DMMA, the yacht clubs have wanted me to let everybody know that there's going to be a lighted boat parade at, I believe, 6 p.m. And it's going to be live streamed through the Waterland blog as well. But it's a great opportunity to get down, have a cup of cocoa, maybe at the quarter deck, and enjoy the boats. As part of the issues recently, I wanted you guys to know Sergeant Kripe and myself represent the city of Des Moines. We met with the mayor of Kent and the police chief there, and several businesses, about 30 some businesses that were there. Only one of them was from Des Moines, but we heard their concerns too. And it was a very healthy conversation. And this is something that I like to see, because everybody's in fear and it's emotional and so forth. But together, if we join forces together and be constructive, we're going to shorten the curve on this crime wave we're having now. Thing is, for residents, as I asked the chief, is call the police, don't engage them. If you see something, say something. And it's not saying something on Facebook, it's making a report. We do crime analytics in this city, and the best way to do it is know where the hot spots are. But look out for each other, form those neighborhood block watches and so forth. And it's going to be up to every one of us to do the difference. You have the commitment of this council that we'll do our best efforts to ensure we have adequate police force. And you can see that we definitely trust the chief and what he's doing to partner with the other agencies to get a solution. And we'll hear what they need when we go forward, as we always have. Another meeting I had today was the Gateway Executive Board, the Puget Sound Gateway Executive Board. And what that looks is the 2 highway extensions, 167, and what we're particularly interested in is 509. Due to inflation and competition and construction and everything else, the 2 projects together, even though there are many, quite a bit of money, it's up $382 million from the original forecast. Now, there is belief we can get some funding from federal government to offset that, but cost of goods, steel, which is required to use domestic steel in these projects and so forth like that, are big factors, along with labor costs, et cetera. But but it seems like the Department of Transportation, along with our legislators, seem to be able to want these to be a priority. They're already well underway as construction projects. So I don't see any issues coming back to the city at this point. In closing, my only comment, and I thought Councilmember Banks said it well, it is a responsibility we provide accurate information. And I read Mr. Harris's information, and I'll be candid, it was incorrect, particularly the economic piece of it, and the Marina District as an enterprise fund in its whole and how it'll be funded versus how the rest of the project. There was some combinations and stuff like that. And it's concerning because it's misinforming the public. We don't want to do it. We shouldn't have to. These should have been conversations that occurred with staff. And unfortunately it didn't. So we do it here. Nobody's meaning to shame, but the problem is when people get misinformed, and I heard references in emails as soon as today about we were building skyscrapers. And this is problematic and it has to stop. And it's about being responsible for your own actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple things. I stopped by Doug Myers. He had a kind of a gathering. It's really more of a drop-in. He invited the council to attend because of meetings today and so forth. I don't know who was able to attend. I didn't see anybody when I was there. It was a fully masked group. I stopped by because I had some contribution for the Toys for Tots, and it was a brief drive-by, and then I came here to City Hall. One of the things that I did observe while I was there, it looks like they're paving the back alley that goes back by the theater all the way to 223rd, and that's a lot of progress. Boy, we've been waiting to get that undergrounding and everything done for a long time. So that will definitely help with what is going on in the downtown development. And so I was really happy to see that done. And I too want to make a comment. You know, our job is to make sure that the public gets accurate information. And when things are misrepresented by a council member or anybody else, we have to make sure that the correct information is there. Or even if there are things that are are misleading, it's the staff's job to make sure that when the facts, when things are put out there, that facts are correct. And that's what Michael does. The other thing is when we look at things that are put out there that create fear or cause rumors or mislead the public, we have an obligation to do that. I agree with Deputy Mayor Mahoney saying, well, if there was a conversation, but even when some of those conversations have occurred, there's been, truth be damned, this is my take on it. This is my blog. This is what I'm going to say. This is my Facebook post. This is what I'm going to say. So I think, I mean, it's unfortunate, but this is where we get the opportunity to deal with it. Having said that, I will also say, Mr. Martinelli, given your track record, I suggest you not throw stones when you live in a glass house. And that concludes my remarks for tonight. We are at the end of our meeting, and our next meeting will be on December 9th, 2021. Is there a motion to adjourn? I see Councilmember Bangs, seconded by Deputy Mayor Mahoney. All those in favor, raise your hand until I call your name. Councilmember Netting, Councilmember Bangs, Councilmember Buxton, Councilmember Harris, Deputy Mayor Mahoney, Mr. Martinelli, and myself. We are adjourned.